Hey guys, I'm Helena, and again with a new hair. So today we're going to talk about the second part of the ring, which is of course the Walküre, the Walküre, my favorite, but don't tell the others, but it's my favorite. Okay, so this is gonna be a relatively short video just because there's only 6 people, and we have to see that there are like two floors for that, because we have the mortal world on one side and on the other side we have the god's world, and we have antagonists in both. Just saying, it's a fact. Those two worlds collide obviously in the third act, but there's literally like 2 antagonists in that. So gonna start again with, we're forgetting what happened last week. We're forgetting what will happen the next weeks. It's just today. It's just the Valkyrie. So we're gonna go through our people as always, because why not? Just to remind everyone who's in this anyway. So we've got obviously in the like mortal world, we've got the twins, Sigmund and Sieglinde, and Hunding, Sieglinde's husband. If you're again into Game of Thrones, Cersei Lannister / Baratheon, Jaime Lannister, and the old king, the old Baratheon king, I don't remember his name, he was killed so fast. Anyway, so this is for the Game of Thrones people. I always love it when people say like Wagner's too high for them, but they watch Game of Thrones or they hear film music and it's like, that's Wagner. You're probably gonna be married to Wagner, honestly. But anyway, again, mortal world, Sigmund, Hunding, Sieglinde. Very, very clear antagonist. Very obvious, it's Hunding. It's always been Hunding. Like, for the last year in Bayreuth, when they had a new Hunding, because Georg Zeppenfeld, he couldn't do Hans Sachs plus Hunding, he wasn't able to do that, so they had a new Hunding. I know his name, but I won't pronounce it here, okay? Let's just stick with new Hunding. And he was actually much more brutal than Georg Zeppenfeld, because he took his belt out at one point. Yeah. Okay, so this is... yeah, we know who the antagonist is. Now, the question is, who's the protagonist in this one? And if we say the protagonist depends on the antagonist, then it's very clear it's Sigmund. It probably still is. I personally think that Sieglinde is one of the easiest people to mess up. This is just... We're gonna have a little walk out of this. I think Sieglinde is very, very easy to mess up, because if you look at just the facts again, if you look at what she's been through, what she lived through, she's 20 years old. She's 5.5 years younger than me. I wouldn't live through this, what she lived through. Like, this is hardcore. And there are still people who are like, yeah, she's very soft, she's very kind, she's very nye. She's a victim. Yes, she's a victim, but she's a heroine because she survived that. Brunhilde, what does she survive? Like 1 week? 1 week of hardship? Please, come on. She can fight. Yes, the whole thing with Siegfried is horrible. Yes, but she was never alone this long. She was with her sisters and with her father for the majority of her life. Very long life. Then she was with Siegfried. Again, considerable amount of time. Then Gunther / Siegfried came and yes, raped her. And took her then with him to the Giebichungen. And then she got married off. And then the next day after the wedding, Siegfried dies and Brunhilde dies with him. So her time of being alone, of being afraid, of being a victim is really only a week. Sieglinde was probably, considering the times, she was married off when she was like 12, 13 years old. Do we really think that Hunding is the nicest of all husbands? No, we don't. It's not how he acts. I mean, I don't suppose she was only raped once. I suppose she was raped over years and years and years and years. Also because she didn't get a child, obviously, before Siegfried. So, if she was married off when she was 12, and Sigmund finds her when they were 20, that means 8 years. And she was a kid. And let's just not talk about what happened before, that you like see your mother get murdered, see your house go up in flames, all that, and then being robbed and whatever done with her. I don't suppose they raped her just yet because they needed to sell her off in as good as new condition. But just see what Sieglinde has been through at this time before meeting Sigmund. And then after this, she was pregnant. And I mean, we all know there is like the scene where Sigmund sings his song, and it's Winterstürme wichen dem Wonnemond. Wonnemond, that's May. She gets pregnant in May, which means she is heavily pregnant throughout the winter, and she has to get her child on her own in February, about January, February, all alone in the woods in winter. And that was a heavy winter, let's be real. And considering that, like, the goddess of motherhood probably didn't like her that much, and how should I put this? There are like Greek myths in which they tell us what Hera did to her husband's mistresses when they were pregnant. Like, a week of labor was normal. So what do we think what happened to Sieglinde? She's a heroine. And it kind of drives me mad if they only depict her as this sweet, No, she's not. She's a survivor. She's a heroine. She's the best mother there can be, honestly. I mean, what mother would take this upon herself? To live for 9 months in a wood where the bloody Fafner is around. That as well. Like, the dragon is there. She's living with the dragon in a wood. Some woods. Like, that woman's a heroine, okay? She may not be the primary protagonist because it's mainly focused around the two men and around Hunding and Sigmund and like their fight, but still, please, for everyone who's singing Sieglinde, remember what she's been through. Just saying. This is a little rant because when I saw my first production of the Walküre on DVD, just saying, on DVD, I hated Sieglinde because she was made to look so weak and such a victim, and it's like what people don't want Disney princesses to be. Like what they say what Disney princesses are, the earlier ones, that they're just waiting for a prince and then everything comes out well and stuff. And that was that Sieglinde. And I was like, no, why would Sigmund stay with her? It doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't he go with Brynhilde? I mean, she's gorgeous. Deborah Boyd. Come on. That woman's gorgeous. And then I saw, like, a year or two later, I saw the Met Opera ring, the ring from the Milano Scala, also on DVD, because it's Waltraud Meyer, and I found her too late, and I got into my Wagner phase too late. And I saw her as Sieglinde, and it was a completely different woman. Just say it. She's completely different. She's a fighter. She's a warrior, and that's in her. Like, there's nothing in her story that supports she's just a victim narrative. There just isn't. She is a victim, but she's not just a victim. There's a difference. And the way that Waltraud Meyer played her, I was like, yeah, I see her. This is her story. She understands her. You see what I mean? Okay. just just a little rant, because I love, this is like the one thing where I love all the women in this one. Normally there's like a 50-50% rate of women I don't like, though we could probably talk about like Elisabeth and Elsa. I don't really know if they can play so much differently. Honestly, I don't think the book gives it. And I think they were too sheltered for the kind of story that Sieglinde had. Just saying. But with a good director, maybe that could be a thing too, that Elsa and Elisabeth could be more interesting. Yeah. Normally there's a 50-50 thing going on with women I like in opera, and there's very few that I actually like everyone. There's Tristan and Isolde, and there's the Walküre. Otherwise there's always one when like, yeah, just not giving. But anyway, Gudrune for example. Anyway, could we make her more exciting? I don't know. I think she's bound to be not exciting against Brünnhilde and Waltraute. But that's just a thought. Anyway, so this was a very long stroll from what we came here to do. But we have, in the mortal world, we have Sigmund against Hunding, and Sieglinde is kind of the bystander just because she doesn't openly fight with Hunding. She's on Sigmund's side, obviously. So, then we are in the world of the gods, and now we come to the interesting things. So, in the world of the gods / Asgard, we've got the Valkyries. We'll leave them out because they, on them by themselves, they don't have that much to speak. We could argue about Brünnhilde, but considering that she considers herself to be a part of Wotan and his will and what he wants, she's more of an extension to him most times, until she has this like, when she meets Sigmund and she sees the love he bears for Sieglinde, if it's right or not. But yeah, we'll just leave Brünnhilde out of this for now, and we'll just concentrate on the most exciting scene probably in the whole Valkyrie, in my opinion. Again, my opinion. You know me, I love Fricka. I love her. She's wonderful. She's the lady of the house, and we'll stick with it. So, just looking at the, like, what is it, second scene of the second act, Himmel. Yada yada yada. Does it count as the second scene? Ja, ja. Ah. Okay. So it's supposed to be the first scene, still. Okay, like Brünnhilde is gone, and then we have the big scene between Wotan and Fricka. And again, we have the narrative. We know what Wagner wants us to think. We know it. We know he loves Wotan. He wrote himself as Wotan. Wotan's his guy. Wotan's supposed to be the good one. But what are the actions? What is actually happening in that scene? Okay? So in this case, we're gonna take in the story of the Rhine-Girl. So we have Wotan, who didn't want to pay for Valhall the way he promised he would. And then he had to get the Rhine-Gold, and then it was made into a ring, and Fafner has it now. And Wotan wants it back. He's cursed to want it back. So what does he do? He says, I need an heir who will do what I want and get this ring back and give it to me. Yeah. Unfortunately, it can't be like his son. Yeah, can't be. It can't be his son. It has to be one generation more. So what does he do? He says, yeah, but my son or my daughter, they can't be with a mortal. Come on, I mean, my grandson would have only 25% of me. This is horrible. No, this is too little. So what he'll obviously do is that he'll make twins with a mortal woman, so that both of those twins have 50% of his DNA, and then make them fall in love, and then make them have a child. Obviously. So that his future grandson will have 50% of him, because he's getting 25% of his father and 25% of his mother. Yay! Wonderful! And you're telling me that this guy is supposed to be the good guy. I don't know about you, but this doesn't sound that good to me. Just me. Again, it's just me. So we've got this kind of conflict going on with Wotan saying, but I want the ring, I want it, I need it, and me. But my plan was so pretty. And Fricka's like, are you hearing what you're saying? I mean, first of all, the girl's married, so this is my territory, because I'm goddess of marriage and fate and romantic love. Romantic love, by the way, difference than Freya. Freya is physical love, Fricka is romantic love. Two separate things. Mind, body. Just saying. And Fricka's like, yeah, I'm goddess of marriage. They are my territory because she's married, he committed adultery. They are mine. And Wotan's like, but I want that ring. And Fricka is like, bro, again, are you listening to yourself? They're twins, bro. Is that like, they're twins? It's gross. And Wagner makes us be on Wotan's side, because obviously he's written this beautiful first act with the twins falling in love and him singing this beautiful love duet. Yay, and them probably being one of the least toxic couples in Wagner history. Anyway, it's really weird to say like that. Wagner wants us to root for Wotan. He wants us to see Fricka as the bad one. If we look at the facts, it's the exact opposite. Because again, it's Wotan's fault that they are there in the first place. For everything. Well, not everything. Interestingly enough, Wagner made it that Wotan is kind of, he always comes in after the action. Like, he comes in after Alberich already stole the ring. He comes in after Sigmund and Sieglinde already fell in love with each other. But still, like, that was his plan. It's kind of like in Meistersinger, when you say, oh yeah, but Hans Sachs is a nice guy, she should marry him. And then you think, he had her when she was a baby. Yay. Creepy. Anyway. So, again, Wotan is supposed to be the protagonist. Fricka is supposed to be the antagonist because she ruins his plans. And this is the one where she really gets to be the antagonist, is that she demands he kills Sigmund, or Sigmund gets killed. And Wotan is completely fine with it, because, how shall I put this? An action needs to be done for his grandson to appear out of thin air, and that action is through. In other words, Sigmund has done the deed, he can die. We don't need him anymore. We got everything out of him. In the truest sense of the word, he can be killed. Yeah. Again, does that make Wotan like the best guy in the world? No. Does it make Fricka the best girl in the world? No. But if we just look at the facts, And we see that there's a dad who wants his twins to make a grandson. And we say there's a woman who says, bro, you can't do this. This is weird. Maybe it looks a bit different. And I know that most people are not with me on this. And I'll still be proud of that I stood up to that lady in Bayreuth who was like, yeah, Fricka's so horrible. She's so bad. Wotan deserved better. And I turned around. She was English, by the way. Or British or American, probably. English speaking. And I was like, try being married to this guy. Just saying. He has 11 children and not one with his wife. At least not in this one. Mythologically, they have 2 sons, Balder and... I never remember the name of the other one. I think it's Helena, but I'm not quite sure about the ear in the end. But they die. Yay. Wonderful. Very, very horribly, and it always breaks my heart to read this myth, but never mind. The guy has 11 children. I mean, that's not much compared to Zeus, but I'm just saying. Like, he's not the best guy. And I say this as someone who loves the real mythological Wotan and the real mythological Fricka. Both. They're very Seussified and Herified, in my opinion. But this might be another video if you want it. But anyway, if we just look at the facts of what they have done, what they are trying to accomplish, again, also just take into consideration that Fricka already more or less lost her sister in this process. With the whole Valhalla thing. So she already paid for that, in a way. Why does my face look uneven? It's gotta be the lighting, I think. Anyway. So, it's difficult, again, but that's the beauty of post-exile Wagner, because they're all ambiguous. Hardly anyone is really just good or just bad. There are also good people who make bad decisions, which is probably what goes in Wotan's favor. And there are also bad people who make good decisions. Not necessarily. Always. Like, there are some people where Wagner just says, no, he's bad. Like Hagen. There is nothing redeeming about Hagen. Nothing. Maybe that he's a bastard and that his father raped his mother. Anyway. It's hardly ever there. So they're all human. And I think that's something that obviously we love about Wagner. Yeah. So where does Brünnhilde fit in? We can talk about this like 5 minutes or so. Where does Brünnhilde fit into this? So obviously she's been an extension of Wotan for all of her life up to this point. And she's like good with, yeah, we'll make him win. And then after Fricka's gone, kill him. She does that. It hurts her, it pains her, but she goes on to do as he pleases. And then she goes to Sigmund and she sees that he'd rather go to Hela with his sister than go to Asgard or to Valhalla on his own. And she sees what great sacrifices he makes. And then she sees that love is a great thing. Sometimes yes, sometimes not, but well, considering that they are in love for like a day, it's still great. And then she changes But I mean, does that make her rather a protagonist or like the good in the situation? I mean, obviously she's the title figure. We all know that. But where does she fit in? And I'd like to, if you have the time, if not, that's also okay again, to hear your thoughts about this. Because obviously Brunhilde is the one who changes. She is, this is why this whole thing obviously is named after her, because she changes the most. No one else changes. Wotan doesn't change. Fricka doesn't change. Hunding certainly doesn't change. Sigmund doesn't change. Sieglinde doesn't change. Well, she has this kind of arc where she says, I don't want to die. I want to die. And then Brunhilde says, you're carrying your brother's child. And she's like, please help me live. But she doesn't have that kind of eye-opening moment that Brunhilde has. And I don't know. Again, I think it depends on who you see as the protagonist in this. If you see really Wotan as the protagonist and you say he's the good one, he's the guy, he's the man, we're only talking about who's good to him, who's bad to him, then obviously Brunhilde is like an antagonist because she goes against Wotan's will. Because she decides to help Sigmund and later Sieglinde, because she failed to help Sigmund. But Brunhilde, she doesn't really fit into any of this. She's kind of almost above it. Because if we put her as protagonist, just as a thought experiment, if we put her as the protagonist, who would be the antagonist? So we have very clearly on her side Sigmund and Sieglinde, and then really everyone else is an antagonist. Because Hunding tries to destroy Sigmund and she tries to protect Sigmund. Then we have Wotan, who also tries to destroy Sigmund. Not really out of his own will, but, well, he does want to have him killed, after all. And obviously Fricka, because Fricka's the evil stepmother in this thing. I mean, obviously, if your husband had 11 children and he was parading them around and then gifted them to you, like 9 of them, yeah, we're having beef with him and those children. And it's easier to bully children than to bully someone like Wotan. Just saying. Anyway. Yeah, it's I think it's difficult, especially for the Walküre, which is also why I love this one so much. Because there's really hardly anyone who's purely good or purely evil. I mean, Hunding doesn't get the redemption arc. From his standpoint, he has a point. But again, Wagner doesn't want us to see that point. He's right off with the customs, let's just say it like that. And yeah, probably we could argue that Hunding's purely bad, but he's a child of his times. We also never have to forget just the customs of the time. And if you think your wife's your property, then his actions make sense. Just saying that. It's unfortunately the reality. And Sieglinde has also that bad side, by like just going away with Sigmund and sleeping with him before Hunding's dead. If Hunding and Sigmund had just like fought right at that moment in the evening, just Sieglinde would have pointed at the sword and said, bro, that's it. Literally, bro, that's it. Get it out. Sigmund got it out. They fought. Sigmund kills Hunding. Done. and then they sleep together, then that's no adultery. Just a good old fight. So yeah. Difficult. Probably one of the most difficult weeks that we have or will have or have had in our series. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you have the time. If not, again, so be it. Yeah. See you next week. By the way, just wanted to tell you 2 things. I'll probably be for some time with a friend of mine. So the background will change again to her closet instead of mine. We have been there before. I'm just saying, we have been in her home. Yeah, we've been there. The second thing that I wanted to tell you, if you want to have a jawline, don't wear a scarf. Something I learned over the last week, because I don't wear a scarf for about a week, and this has come out. My face is not round any longer, because apparently I've been just pushing the fat up, so to say. Yeah. I hope you liked today's episode. It's again a bit chaotic, but I don't like to script our meetings, because I think it's more interesting for me, and maybe it's also better for you because you can see where I'm going. No, you probably can't, because I can't either. No, but you can see how I think, which is probably also not the best thing in the world, because who would like to know how other people think? I know a few people where I would definitely not want to know how they think. But anyway, yeah, that's it for today, and see you next week for Siegfried. And I think since we're going into the territory where there's a very, very clear boundary of Germanic light figures and Jewish night figures, it's gonna be easier next week. Just for you to know, there's no Jewish night figures in the Walküre. There's just the Germanic light figures in Sigmund, Sieglinde, Brünnhilde and Wotan. So basically everyone but Hunding and Fricka. Which again tells us that Wagner, he knew what he was doing. And he knew who he would want us to think who's the evil one. Or 2. You know. So, have a good day and have a good week, and I'll see you in the next week. Bye!